Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. Hey everybody, this is Janice, and I alluded to the fact that we would be talking to Paula Hynes, and this is that episode now. So in our last episode, we talked to Peter about their dairy farm in Ireland, and we talked all about my love of bougie butters and all those things. And I've had so many people talk to me about Kerrygold in the last period of time. It's been funny how many people are avid fans of that or some specific butter. They're like me. I've definitely sensed a love of butter. This time we're going to talk very little about dairy, though. We're going to be talking about a period of time for Paula in 2017 where she was able to go to Kenya and she was able to spend some time with the Maasai people. And I just want to talk to her about what she was able to do there, what she was able to experience. I know a lot of farmers love to see sort of how operations work in a different part of the world or even a different part of our country. We get really intrigued with small differences, but this was pretty massive differences. Am I right, Paula?
It sure was. It was the polar opposite of what I'm used to here in Ireland. Unbelievable experience. It completely changed my whole perspective on life. It was definitely the best thing I have done for a long, long time.
And I know the experience was in 2017, but you're still in communication with people there in Kenya, right? They've become members of your extended family.
Most definitely. I'm on to them 2 or 3 times a week. Very close to William. He would have been the main narrator in the documentary with me. Myself and Pete actually sponsored him to go to university, so he's in his final semester there now. And also one of the ladies, Moibe, got very, very friendly with her. We couldn't speak to each other because she couldn't speak English and obviously I couldn't speak Maasai. But, you know, we just connected on a deeper level than that. We didn't need to speak. She was going through a bit of a rough patch. She's 9 kids. We actually helped send her 9 kids to school as well. So I'm in touch with them the whole time.
I can imagine the difference in raising children in Ireland and the choices you're able to make for your kids versus the choices people have for some of their children in Kenya is very tough.
It is very tough. And like, you know, over there, they have to see how many cows they have to sell to choose between which or how many of their kids can go to school. Usually it's the male population out there gets the preference to go to school while the girls are left at home. It would be completely polar opposites to here where, you know, the men are the hierarchy out there and the women are just kind of at home. But like the strange thing about it is like the women do all the milking, they do all the cooking, they gather all the firewood, they build their houses, you know, like they're actually doing 90% of the work out there. Thankfully, since 2017, things have moved on and become slightly easier for the ladies. So that's good. There's improvements happening the whole time. I think I myself was a big eye-opener to them.
I'm sure you were. We didn't explain the show that you were on and sort of the impetus of you being there. So do you mind sharing that? Because maybe people want to look online and see if they have access to watch it.
Yeah, so back in 2017, after myself and Pete won the Farmer of the Year here, I was approached by a production company in Dublin that they were doing this 3-part documentary series called The Hardest Harvest. And they wanted a dairy farmer, a fisherman, and a forester. So they asked me they said they'd love all females to do the leads, but they could only get female farmers. So I auditioned, there was loads of other women auditioned, and it kind of was a whole process. I did, I think, 3 or 4 interviews, and I knew nothing. All I knew was that it was for a documentary in Africa, and it would be involving farming. I knew no more. I think it was the end of August, early September, I got the phone call to say that they had picked me, and then the panic set in because I didn't think for 1 second that I would have got picked to do it. Like I never traveled anywhere on my own. The last place I had been previous to that was our honeymoon, which was 17 years previous to that. Like I'd rarely even gone to Cork City on my own. So like the thought of traveling 7,000 kilometers out to Africa was daunting, but again, too much good an opportunity not to do it. So in fairness, Pete and the kids all rallied around and they said, geez, yeah, you have to go. Like it's a no-brainer. Thankfully, I did go. And all I knew was that I was going to Kenya. So, and it was literally only when I touched down in Kenya, we stayed at a hotel in Nairobi the first night, when they said that it would be a Maasai tribe that I would be spending my time with. So in hindsight, it was actually amazing because I didn't go doing the whole Google thing. I didn't Google anything. So it was everything I did and everything I saw was on a first come basis, which I think worked out better for me in the end, because I think if I had Googled it and looked into the depths of it, I probably would have shitted myself going out there like.
It would have been so intimidating.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was lucky enough to watch this show. So this was done as a documentary. So there's a film crew that plays along and watches you, but I didn't see them helping you. But William was your big helper.
Yeah, William was my main translator. You know, like it was literally 3 hours outside of Nairobi, literally out in the back ass of nowhere. I mean, the roads were just mud roads. And if they did get heavy rains out there, which they occasionally do, like they can just literally wash away the road. And the village that I was staying in was called Maparasha. So the houses consisted, like they call it the boma. So one family would live in, they have kind of 4 or 5 little bomas inside there and an area for their cattle or their sheep. And then they'd have a big thorn fence around it to keep out the likes of hyenas and elephants and things. So all the cows would come in at nighttime and all the sheep as well for protection. So there was 2 lots of different families living there. So there was a nice, there was 40 or 50 people there. And the kids were, oh my God, the kids were amazing. They just stole my heart straight away. But even the minute I got out of the Jeep, I could hear, I got out of the Jeep and I walked up to the village, up to the little bomas, and I could hear the ladies singing a song. And they're like, the Maasai are big into singing and doing these special dances. So that's all I could hear when I was walking up. And it totally relaxed me straight away. They were so lovely and so welcoming. And they gave me lovely bits of jewelry that they make themselves as well straight away. So, I instantly felt part of the whole thing. So it was really nice. The kids were very, very fascinated with my long blonde hair. They kept touching it, and because the majority of them were just kind of, they don't have any hair. They'd have really tight cornrows, some of maybe the older ladies, but like they were just completely fascinated by the color of my skin and the amount of hair that I have.
I've had that unique experience in a few places. My sister lived in Japan a long time, and she's blonde and blue-eyed. So I'd always see people mesmerized by her. But when I went to India as a redhead with, my skin is very bright white. It's bad in the sun. And people there were, especially in the smaller villages, not used to seeing somebody like me in their midst. Yeah. And so it's a very unique experience. Part of the boma you were living in, the village you were living in, they also have cattle. You said the cattle come in at night. Yeah. It was the hardest harvest in part because of drought, or what all was going on that made life so hard?
There was a massive drought on there when I got there. There hadn't been rain in over 12 months. So the cattle, like there was very little for them to eat, very little for them to drink, because a lot of the rivers around, like the way they do it is the younger boys would take the cattle out kind of grazing for a couple of hours every day, stay with them and protect them against wild animals. And then they'd come back home to the boma for the night. But like the first day I went out with the boys, with the cattle, which was the first in Maasai history as well, that the women aren't normally allowed to do this because, they wouldn't be capable of doing it apparently. But I did anyway, and like the stuff the cows were eating, I mean, like you couldn't even, it's not even grass. To me, it just looked like weeds. I mean, they had to walk for nearly 6-7 hours just to keep finding bits and pieces to eat. And at one stage we did come across a river, but like there was even very little water in the river at that stage. So they just literally have to keep roaming until they can find enough to fill the cattle. But sure, I mean, there was no filling them because there wasn't the food there for them. That was the hardest part of the whole experience for me, was the cows would actually just drop down with the hunger, and they can't, there was a couple of them we would have had to stand up, or we'd have to help them to stand up. They were just so weak. Like even the first couple of days over there, I think there was 4 or 5 cows died, and that was a killer for me, because they get to the stage where they can't do anything for them. They can't even lift them, so they just literally leave them there to die outside the boma. At least here we can call it.
That image of a downed cow is something I think dairy farmers have all had to deal with a downed cow,
Yes.
but there's always this hope that you can save them. And there's always different things that you can do
Yeah.
when you're in the US or in Ireland. But
Yeah.
the people there just don't have the resources available, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't have water and you don't have food.
And like they don't have the tractor with the hip clamp to lift them up, and you know, there's no vets there that you can bring out to put them down humanely. So unfortunately out there, like when they go to that stage where they are too weak to even stand, or for even us to help them to stand, you know, they're just put outside the boma and they're just left there to die of their own will. And usually what would happen is a hyena would come in the middle of the night, or a pack of hyenas, and they would just devour them, and that would be the hyenas' feed for the couple of days.
It would be so hard to watch, given
so that was heart-wrenching.
That you're used to being able to do something more dramatic to help the cattle live. You're not used to them getting in that spot, right?
Oh, it was horrible.
I understood. It looks like you were able to, in some ways, gain the trust of the chief of the group you were with.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, in a big way. He actually didn't come near me for the first, the best thing about it was I didn't physically know what I was set a series of tasks every day, but I didn't know what task I was doing on any given day. I only found out that morning. So like the chief had set out these tasks. He didn't actually come near me for the first couple of days at all. He just kind of watched me. We didn't speak at all. So the first task was to go out with the men, grazing the cattle. That did cause a bit of controversy with the ladies, because they gave me a hunting knife, which usually only Maasai men are allowed to carry. So they did give me one that I had with me. But then, like, it was funny, as we were walking around with the cattle, another boma, a lady saw me with the knife and she went mental. Like, she goes, oh, what, you know, the lads were telling me after, why is that white woman, why has she got this knife? She shouldn't be having this knife, and blah, blah, blah. But then the following day, I went with the ladies. That was, you know, it took kind of an hour or two to break the ice with them, because they were put out because I had gone out with the boys with the cattle and because I had the knife. But thankfully, the next day we went to a forest to cut down timber so I could build my own manetta, which is my own mud hut. They gave me a machete as well, and we had to walk 4 kilometers to the forest and literally cut the timber down off the trees, which was an experience in itself, because like the hand-eye coordination with a machete, no need. But thankfully we got there. Those women are like warrior women. I mean, like, they can climb up trees like a monkey. They're unbelievable. We all cut down the timber anyway, and we had a great laugh. So I think we kind of gelled that day. And you literally carry the timber back on your head, then back to the boma. And that afternoon, then we started digging out the foundations for my manetta. And we really bonded that day. We had great fun doing that, because they were laughing their heads off at me trying to bend over with the machete, cutting out the foundations with the machete and everything. Like, so funny.
There are a lot of life skills that you didn't need to develop in Ireland that came in really handy there. Like being able to climb a tree is not something I generally need in my day-to-day. As a child, I probably, I did that as a child. I can remember it fondly. But today, if I needed to climb a tree to get wood down, God help me, I would be featured on TV for some laughing video kind of mockery. So I can imagine that the kinds of skills they needed to build houses, these women have just picked them up, lifelong lessons, right? And you had to pick them up kind of on hand. So it would be a bit funny to watch.
Fairly lively, yeah. Yeah, it was. But like, they were so helpful. Like, I mean, I think there's only one or two of the ladies, there was one or two of the ladies could speak English, but like, they were very, very slow to communicate with me, because we still were trying to build up the relationship, because they really were annoyed about the day before. But to be fair to them, by the end of the day, we were all on the same page. They really showed me how to do everything, and they explained it to me by doing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Instead of speaking it to me. We came home, or back to the boma, like, they made me chai tea. That would be a big thing, is the chai tea. But of course, they thought I was fierce weird altogether, because they all have sugar in their chai tea, whereas I don't take sugar in my tea at all. Like, they have about 8 spoons of it. And of course, they thought I was the right weird one, that I was drinking with no sugar at all. And it was the day after then, when someone had reported back to the chief that I had fulfilled all these tasks, and I had done to, I suppose, the standards that he was expecting. I suppose I was then invited to go to one of his wives' manettas and cook him dinner, which is a big thing. So I was able to cook for the chief, and I actually went into his manetta and ate dinner with him and William and William's mom. So that's the first night I'd met the chief and spoke to him, and sure, we had a great laugh. I was asking him you know what? Oh God, what was it like to have two wives? And he goes, oh yeah, sure, it's good crack. And sure, he's 19 kids between the two wives, and he could speak good enough English, so we had a few laughs along the way as well throughout the night. You know.
You said you cooked for him. I remember the meal did not look like an elaborate one.
Yeah, that was another shock to the system. So the meal consisted of, so these manettas, they cook in the manettas, and there is no chimney or nothing to leave the smoke out. So it's literally cooking on an open fire inside the manetta. So they handed me a tomato, and sure, I was going to chop the whole tomato. Oh, no, one slice. So one sliver of tomato. They also gave me an onion, which was like if I was at home, I'd chop the whole lot in. But no, I can only take one sliver of that. So that into a big scoop of fat. It's a hard lard that they use. And literally then it's just rice. So the one sliver of tomato and the one sliver of onion to flavour the rice. And that was what the meal consisted of. And the chief then gets the biggest portion. And depending on where you are in the tribe, your portion gets smaller. But he always gets fed first, and the men get fed first.
Yeah, it's a very different culture, but it's so neat to be able to learn from it directly from people and understand and respect their beliefs and the way they do things.
Oh, yeah.
And I can understand the question of trust after you've been able to do something that women there don't typically do. I can see how that would happen even in our own homes, right? When we let one kid do something the other kids can't do, and the kids all look at you like, what do you mean? So I can understand making you earn that trust from them individually.
Oh, totally. I mean, it had to be done. And I mean, their way of life is very, very different to our way of life. And there's a pecking order over there. And that's just their culture. And I made sure that I respected that. And like anything that I was asked to do, I wholeheartedly put my whole heart and soul into it, because there's no way I would have wanted to annoy anyone or disrespect them or so. Like anything that was thrown at me, I gave it 110%. And of course, there was that bit of me going, well, I'm not going to give the men the satisfaction of me not fulfilling these tasks as well.
Yeah.
No, because I'm the sort of person, I don't like being told that I can't do something. Like, tell me I can't do something, and I guarantee you that I will try twice as hard to make sure that I do it.
I totally understand. We're competitive in my family too. One of the pieces is the cattle there are for milk, as well as they have other animals that they'll use for meat on rare occasions.
Yeah.
Would you mind explaining how they access sort of the food and sustenance from the animals? Because it was a complex equation, it looked like.
They very rarely eat meat. It's mainly rice dishes, and they might have fried cabbage. I suppose depending on the money that's available for the week, they'd have kind of fried cabbage. And the main meat they would eat would be goat meat. And the Maasai don't seem to eat beef at all. So like for the way we can walk into a chemist here for an iron supplement, we get a bottle of stuff or we can take a tablet. Over there, they do bloodletting. This consists of, I suppose, you pick the strongest cow that would be there, and the chief would get a bow and arrow, and he'd put the arrow into the cow's vein. A couple of the lads would be holding the cow, and they'd get blood straight out of the cow's vein, and they'd drink it then. So I had the absolute total privilege of being offered a cup of this blood to try. And of course, all the fellas in the back row, the young boys, were going smirking and laughing and cheering, "Oh, your one's not going to drink that at all." But of course, I didn't want to be disrespectful to the chief, because he was sitting down right next to me. So yes, I did drink cow's blood. And then one of the lovely things I got to experience over there was the chief's dad. It was actually his birthday one of the days I was out there. So there was a big celebration for his birthday. Granda had actually 6 wives and lots of kids. He was such a lovely, lovely man, and totally welcomed me with open arms as well. So for his birthday, they sacrificed a goat. So there was a goat picked, and I was able to, normally it's only the boys and the men are able to go out and slaughter the goat, but I was allowed to go and observe this process. So the goat was sacrificed and they slit his throat. So it was kind of quick and painless, really. But they collected the blood from the throat as well and proceeded then to chop up the goat, I suppose. But there wasn't one single piece of that goat wasted. Like every single bit of it was used in some shape or form. And then while they were cooking the goat, so the boys actually miraculously were able to light a fire that day themselves and cook some of the meat. And next thing, the chief called me over and he goes, "Oh, you have to try this, Paula." So I'm like, "Oh, lovely." So it was the goat's blood after coagulating. So he just cut through it with a knife and he handed me a piece of this all like it literally was like a piece of liver. So of course William was looking at me. Yeah, right. But I did again. I swallowed it, and it was grand. The goat's blood now was very, very salty. It was fine. And then sure, I had to eat some goat with the men, and then I had to go. Then the women were looking for me, so I had to go over to the women's place because the men and women don't eat together normally.
Yeah.
So then I had to go over to eat some goat with the women, and then I got the huge honor of sitting down face to face, just me and the chief, to eat, and we had the ribs of the goat. Like that was a huge, huge honor because it just doesn't happen. He doesn't even eat. He'd never eat usually with a woman, or he'd never even eat with his wives. So that was nice. So we had, he was asking me about farming in Ireland, and I had some photographs as well that I had brought with me, and sure, he was astonished with the green grass and the cows, and that was really something to be able to sit down face to face and have a one-on-one meal with him.
Looking at the photos of the animals in that video with you, drought, hard lives, compared to the dairy cattle you're used to, it really is a shocking difference in the animal's physical entity, right? And so I'm certain it would be hard, just like it's hard for us to understand being in that big of a drought. It would be equally hard to understand that much prosperity.
Yeah, I mean,
that would be reflected in our photographs of our farms, all that green grass.
It's just so hard to comprehend. Like there was one cow, they took me over to look at it, and it had got injured and it needed to be stitched. But like obviously they couldn't afford a vet to come out and stitch it out in the middle of nowhere. Like, but it was funny. It was like something, in some ways our cultures were similar. Like it was like Ireland back in the 1900s or the 1920s, they had stitched it up with a stick and twine, and they'd use ashes to put on it to stop it getting infected. I mean, that's something that would have happened here donkeys years ago. But I suppose the worst thing for me was I got the job of taking 2 cows to the market, which is a 38-kilometer walk. Like there's no cattle boxes, no trucks out there to take them. Again, I was the first woman in the history of the Maasai ever to do this. But the walk itself was fine. It was amazing. Everyone was laughing, going, "Oh, she's not going to do it," or and I was asked after, "Oh, I bet you got into the Jeep with the camera crew." I genuinely didn't, because again, I had a point to prove to these fellas that women are more than capable of doing what you do. But I found that the toughest thing. Like you'd be walking along with your cows and bang, one of them just drops and you have to leave it there. You can't do anything for it. They literally just leave them there at the side of the road. And walking down as you go on, like we came across a zebra that was just thrown at the side of the road. That was the hardest aspect of it for me, seeing the animals just dying.
Wow.
Just all from the lack of water and a bit of food. And I'm thinking at home, like we've grass in abundance.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time anyway. But like then another day, there was a cow had a calf, and the chief came back one evening and goes, "Oh, you have to go milk this cow." So I said, "Grand," but like the poor calf was drinking as well, and like because there's no food, sure, she wasn't producing the milk she should have been producing. So like the calf had like half a litre of milk. I was taking the other half a litre for him.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, oh my God, like my calves at home are getting 6 to 8 litres of milk a day. They get as much as they want. They have nuts, they have hay. My cows get as much grass as they want. And like this poor misfortune here is trying to feed the kids and the family, and also feed her baby, her little calf, So that was the toughest thing for me, is with the animals.
Yeah. As I watched the video of it, I thought, it's just heart-wrenching, and yet such an amazing opportunity. Like you said at the beginning, how many people have been able to really see how the other side lives in a way that you can grow to understand it, instead of as a picture show off in the distance. You're there in the midst of it.
Yeah, that was like, I could never put into words the feelings that I had out there. I was so lucky to be literally dumped in the middle of this Maasai tribe and got to experience everything firsthand on how they're doing it. Like there was nothing pre-planned. Like obviously they had a plan of what they wanted me to do every day, but like everything was totally legit. There was no special treatment. I mean, I didn't wash myself for 3 weeks. There was no showers. There was no toilets. Thank God for baby wipes. I brought baby wipes with me. But like, that was literally, I had my own clothes, obviously, but like while I was there, they wanted me to dress in their clothes. So like I had 2 sets of Maasai clothes, which they gave me. So like you wear one for a week, You wash it on a Saturday, you wear the other one. like you 2 sets of clothes and that was it. Like, so like everything was just like, I mean, you can't pay for that. I mean, this was a proper, real experience, you know, and like I was just felt so privileged and honored to be able to experience it in that way. It's like you couldn't get that on the tourist trail, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
And I just can't wait to go back out there again.
Yeah, and I think your family, you all want to be able to have the experience if you can swing it. Is that right?
Yeah, like myself and Pete should have gone last year, but sure, with COVID, we couldn't. I suppose it depends on what way COVID is going to go and what way things are out there. The numbers are high enough out there. William is actually graduating from university next July, so the aim at the moment is to go out for his graduation, July 2022, hopefully, because also there has been loads of new babies added to the family since I've been there, and looking forward to meeting them, and you know, looking forward to meeting the kids that, like, there was William's sister Guita, like she was only 4 when I was there in 2017. Like she showed me how to milk goats. Like, I mean, she was a rock star of a child, able to milk the goats in super record time. And you know, like she's the same age as my youngest now, Georgina. Like, so can't wait to go back and meet all them. And also, she, since I was there, like, the chief has really stepped up to the mark with regards and being more respectful of the ladies.
Great.
And, you know, things have changed out there. We got to go to school, which is amazing. So there is some of the younger girls going to school as opposed to just all boys. That's a huge, huge achievement. And also, it's like Moibe has her own little business going now and she can earn her own money.
That's fantastic. It's a big difference in her life.
No, I do support her I do help her with the kids going to school, but like, you know, she is now in a position where she can feed her own kids. She's not relying on her husband. She looks after them herself. And they're just after stepping up a bit to the plate as well and making themselves being heard, which is nice. And things are, you know, they're on the up over there. That's great. I just hope they'll be able to keep up the momentum with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, I appreciate your talking with us about it. I think so many of us have these pictures of these beautiful Maasai people in our minds from, you know, National Geographic or some things we've seen on TV. And it's nice to get the added real kind of views that you add.
Yeah, like they have such beautiful jewelry as well, that they make themselves out of these tiny beads. And like there's different pieces of jewelry for representing where you are in rank in the tribe as well, to know whether you're married or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And like
yeah,
they made, like, when myself and Pete went back when I took Pete over to meet everyone, they had made some beautiful bits for me because obviously I was married, like, so they're lovely to have. And the chief was so impressed as well. He gave me a beautiful Maasai name, so that's lovely to have and to treasure it.
So what's your Maasai name then?
Nasula. And it means, guess what it means?
Nasula. I have no idea.
It means winner.
Fantastic. So it's a little bit of a saying based on your work at the market, taking the cattle to market.
Exactly. He was very impressed with that I made it all the way there and back without killing myself or collapsing or anything. So
well, thank you so much. I've got some video that we'll put with this on the website because I think people will want to see it.
Cool.
And I'll make sure we grab a photo or something from that just so people can get a good look at it, because what an amazing story. People can always find you. You're on Twitter and Instagram.
Yeah.
So they can always find you there. And we'll put those links in the show notes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Janice. Lovely to talk to you.
Yes. And we'll have this up soon. I can't wait. People are going to have lots of questions for you, I think.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You have a great evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Thanks.
Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and I'm even on Clubhouse. So feel free to look us up. Also on our website, groundedbythefarm.com. Wherever you want to get in touch, we're trying to be there. Shoot us a message about questions you have about farming and food. I hope you enjoy these episodes enough that you'll share them with friends, whether that's via social media or in a conversation. Love to think some of that is while you're having dinner with friends and family. This is a production of Grounded Communications. Editing is by Two Guys Talking. Thank you.